This is Alternate History 100. Welcome to the class.
Good morning. Iran has been in the news a lot lately with the demonstrations and the shutdown of their internet and the mass killings of protesters. But even before that, we heard a lot about them. They are a pariah nation whose petrodollars finance terrorism and whose stated aim is to destroy Israel. But that was not always so. There was a time when they were actually friendly to the West. And I just got back from a world where that friendship never ended. Let's begin at a point in history where our world and that one were the same. It's World War II, and the Allies want Iranian oil. The use of Iranian railways to ship supplies to the Soviet Union, and the presence of Allied troops in Iran to make sure the Germans don't step in. Iranian leader Shah Reza Pahlavi would not cooperate with that, so the British and Russians forced him to abdicate. His 21-year-old son, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, took over and signed deals that gave the Allies what they wanted. Those railways ran smoothly and Iranian oil flowed to the Allied war effort. But when the war ended, the British didn't leave like Iran expected them to do. They kind of hung around like guests who won't leave a party. This stirred up resentment in Iran. A politician named Mohammad Mossadegh formed the National Front, which fought for an end to British control of the oil industry. And when he became prime minister in 1951, he got his oil nationalization law passed. Flash forward a couple of years. It's 1953. There was a surplus of oil on the world market. Britain had other sources to buy from and announced a boycott of Iranian oil in order to regain the upper hand in the relationship. Having no other market, Iran's economy suffered. The Shah tried to remove Mossadegh from office, but was forced into exile when Mossadegh's supporters pushed back. The West didn't like this, and within days orchestrated a coup that overthrew Mossadegh and put the Shah back in power. Mossadegh was convicted of treason. He was imprisoned for 3 years and spent the rest of his life under house arrest. Iran kept sovereignty over her oil, but under an agreement reached in 1954, had to split revenues with foreigners who controlled production and marketing. The Shah was a heavy-handed ruler, but because he had oil and was friendly to the West, he was acceptable to the democracies. Kinda like that acquaintance you have who is a bit of a jerk, but you hang out with him because he has a swimming pool. In 1963, the Shah launched his White Revolution, a program meant to modernize Iran. It began an emancipation of women, reduced religious education, redistributed land from wealthy owners, pushed for urbanization, and essentially put Iran on the path to westernization. All sounds good, right? But a whole lot of people there opposed it. The wealthy landowners for one, but it wasn't just them. The clerics didn't like the reforms either. And among them was a guy named Ruhollah Mousavi Khomeini. He passionately opposed the Shah's program. Apparently, too passionately. He was imprisoned before 1963 was over and exiled the following year. He lived in Turkey and then Iraq and finally Paris. Out of sight, out of mind, right? From his exile, he continued to rail against the Shah's regime. He recorded sermons on cassette tapes, these things. Old school but effective. They were smuggled into Iran and played in the mosques. When his son died in an Iranian jail in October 1977, he took the big step of calling for the overthrow of the Shah. That lit the match for the Iranian Revolution. In February 1979, the Shah fled and Khomeini returned. Khomeini quickly established a theocracy that imposed strict Islamic rules on everyone. Suspected counter-revolutionaries were executed. Women were forced into burqas and forbidden to drive. Squads patrolled the streets, tackling women who dared to wear makeup and scrubbing their faces clean. In a nutshell, this modern nation had been grabbed by the neck and hurled back into the 12th century. A Western boycott crippled their economy. The Shah had built a powerful military with an ultra-modern air force, but parts for the planes could not be had, and a lot of the skilled people who kept things running had been killed in the purges. When Iraq attacked in 1980, Iran got into an 8-year war that left 1 million dead. And Iraq? Well, the West built them up as a bulwark against Islamic fundamentalism sweeping across the region. And that kind of backfired. When the Iran-Iraq war ended, Iraqi President Saddam Hussein looked west and decided to gobble up Kuwait on the false assumption that he had the blessing to do so. That led to the Persian Gulf War, which pulled in nations from around the world. And all of this happened off one cleric returning after a 15-year exile. But what if that return didn't happen? Well, that's the point of divergence between our world and the one I visited. In that world, Khomeini died of an apparent heart attack on June 3, 1977. That was before his son died, so he never got around to calling for the outright overthrow of the Shah. Some believe that his death was brought on by some sort of injection by the CIA or agents of the Shah, but there was no evidence to support that notion. His followers mourned and protested when the Shah would not allow his body to be brought back to Iran for burial, but nothing came of that. It was just the same kind of protest that had been going on since the 60s. And with the Shah still in power, no group of students grabbed the American embassy in Tehran in the hope of using hostages as bargaining chips to have the Shah extradited. As in our world, the Shah fell ill with cancer and died on July 27, 1980. His 19-year-old son, also named Reza, took the peacock throne. And he did not have to deal with an Iraqi invasion or a boycott from the West. He continued with the progressive programs and gradually relaxed many of the restrictions for which his father had been criticized. Waving from an imperial box, he presided over the opening ceremonies of the 1984 Olympics in Tehran. And today, at age 65, he still rules Iran. A prosperous pro-Western Iran that does not sponsor terrorist movements against Israel or anyone else. Your assignment is to look at the materials I brought back and write 2,000 words on some aspect of that other world. What did the absence of the Iran hostage crisis mean over there? Did Jimmy Carter get a second term? Or how about the absence of the Iran-Iraq war? Or the absence of the Persian Gulf War? Is there Saddam Hussein still around? What happened to the Olympics in a world where Peter Ueberroth did not revive the Games with a profitable event in Los Angeles in 1984? Did they have a 9/11? Is that world better off than ours? I think that the Iranian Revolution is one of the most important things to happen in the last 50 years. I'm sure you'll find something from that list to write about. And keep your notes, because the next lecture is going to spin off of this one. And once more, keep in mind that all these differences between the two worlds are the result of one man's actions. So take that, Mr. Celsius. There are no inevitabilities here. Class dismissed. Hi, I'm Gary Wheeler. Alternate History 100 is a labor of love with the twin goals of entertaining you and making you think. If you like what you heard today, please hit the subscribe button, give us a like, and tell your friends about us. Your word of mouth can really help this channel grow. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode. Until then, keep thinking and make some history of your own.
The preceding was a work of fiction and should not be taken as actual history.